1 here is a short video on two major Islamic events, the Miraj and the Hegira, and then just a breakdown of the three holy cities of Islam, Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem. But we'll start with these two historical events. The Miraj basically is the ascension from the city of Jerusalem to heaven, to God, to Allah, by Muhammad. Nothing, not out of his own power, but through the calling and power of God. He's in Mecca, so that earthly voyage transportation from Mecca to Jerusalem is called the Isra, Mecca to Jerusalem, and then finally ascension from Jerusalem to heaven to paradise is called the Miraj, the place of ascension. That occurred in 620 AD. It is described in chapter 53, the star, but you'd have to go to hadiths to get more recollections, remembrances, or narratives about Muhammad to get more of an explanation of that. So you have the angel Gabriel, as always, visiting Muhammad in Mecca, and then with the help of this celestial heavenly horse or steed, Barak transports Muhammad from Mecca to Jerusalem, and where he prays with different prophets. And then from Jerusalem, he ascends to all these 7 different realms of heaven, talking to different prophets along the way, until he finally reaches Allah. And Allah says, tell the people to pray to me 50 times a day. Moses or Musa pleads with him, saying, no, that's too much. Go back to God and negotiate until finally 5. So Muslims are commanded to pray 5 times a day, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which will be a next lecture, Salat, because of the Miraj, this ascension story of 620 AD. So this helps explain why Jerusalem is such a holy city for Muslims, because the earthly physical point of ascension to heaven is not Mecca, it's not Medina, it's Jerusalem. So it's a very, very holy city. It's called the Dome of the Rock, the earthly point of ascension, but we'll get to that in this next page here in a second. But Moses, the lawgiver, tells Muhammad to negotiate. You can't do 50. God understands. God's gracious. Allah's merciful. Says 40. Muhammad conveys that to Moses. Moses says, no, go back to God, negotiate again. 30, and then no, 20, and then no, 10, and then finally 5. Moses even says no to 5. But Muhammad says, no, it is 5. Stop. Enough negotiation with God. So God is gracious. God's merciful. God's understanding. From God's perspective, each of those 5 daily Muslim prayers actually counts as 10. 10 each. You're doing 5. 10 times 5 equals 50. So you're still hitting your goal of 50 by doing 5, because that's how understanding and gracious, merciful Allah is. God sees each of your 5 representing 10 each for 50 total. And then the Hijra, or the Hegira, it's the same word, flight or migration. Basically, it's the emigration of Muhammad and Muslims from Mecca to Medina in 622. Muslims, go to Yathrib, through renamed Medina, city of the Prophet. They go to Yathrib out of invitation. Those in Yathrib, a city of various religions with Jews and Christians. No Muslims in Yathrib. The Muslims are all together with Muhammad. He brings the Muslims with him. So it's a city where there's no Muslims, but they are impressed. Those in Yathrib are impressed with his ethical teachings. So they go 270 miles north from Mecca to Medina. So that's the Hijra, their flight or migration out of Mecca because they are no longer safe. There were assassination plots that were foiled by those in Meccan upper echelons of society and power that wanted to eliminate Muhammad, but they are not successful. So they finally have to flee, and they go to Medina, city of the Prophet, used to be called Yathrib. This is the starting point of the Islamic calendar, which is a lunar calendar. It starts with this physical event, the Hegira, because this is the first time in human history an entire city favorably accepts the message of Allah as conveyed to Allah, God's final prophet, Muhammad. So it's the first time in history. This is why Medina is such a holy city as well too. Islam now takes on a social cultural dimension to it. So here you have Muhammad being the governor, the administrator of law in a civic, civil, political sense. He becomes the governor, a statesman. So now there's a social, law, legalistic, jurisprudence, political dimension that starts to shape Islam as well too. So he's not just a religious leader, but now he becomes a social, political leader, not just a prophet. And I don't mean just as in, well, just, that's it. But now he's no longer just a simple prophet, but now he's this political leader of an entire community, entire city, developing, codifying law, if you will. So, so a quick review of those, and then you see Mecca and Medina on the Arabian Peninsula. Here is Jerusalem right here. So that traveling from Mecca to Jerusalem would have taken months. It takes seconds with the help of Muhammad and that heavenly horse. And then that's again the miraj. It's the Isra, the earthly voyage from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then the miraj, he ascends to heaven from Jerusalem. The travel, my endless waves, it wasn't just one wave of people, there were several waves of migration out of Mecca to Medina. That's called the hegira, again, on the map there. If you want to take a look at some of this and other facts organized by city, here are your 3 holy cities for all Muslims, including Sunnis and Shiites. Shiites have other cities that they regard as holy in what we call present-day Iraq and Iran today, but these are definitely the 3 holy cities for all Muslims. Mecca is the holiest city, whether you're Sunni or Shiite. It is the birthplace of Muhammad. It's the holiest city because that's where the Kaaba is located, built by Adam, most Muslims say, and then was further renovated and repaired by Abraham and Ishmael. The Kaaba is cube in Arabic. It is the first house of worship built to honor and glorify God. Mecca is the beginning or starting point of the Hijra, which is the migration out of Mecca to Medina, and it's the starting point of the night journey, the earthly transportation from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then of course from Jerusalem, Muhammad ascends to heaven. The starting point of the Islamic calendar, again, is the Hijra in 622. Muhammad did not discover the city of Mecca. It was a very, very important city in the Meccan Peninsula, on the Arabian Peninsula, a major economic powerhouse, trading outpost. Muhammad conquers Mecca in 630 and reforms Mecca eventually to a monotheistic culture and city itself, and he cleanses the Kaaba. He takes the 360 idols and statues out of the Kaaba, destroys them, and thus rededicates the Kaaba back to its original purpose, to honor and glorify the one God, Allah. Muslims are commanded to visit the city of Mecca once in their lifetimes when financially and physically able to do so during the month of pilgrimage, the actual month of pilgrimage. That pilgrimage is called hajj, and that is one of the other 5 pillars of Islam, which we'll get to in this next lecture coming up. Abraham, the prophet Abraham, does have a son named Ishmael. It's his firstborn son. He has Ishmael through Hagar. Hagar is Sarah's maidservant, or basically slave, Arab Egyptian slave. Once Sarah becomes pregnant with her own son Isaac, she has them cast out. God confirms all this. Says, yes, it's time to separate. And this is, so Hagar and Ishmael are cast out. This is eventually where they are sent to. We call this Mecca today. What's there is only desert. Obviously, when this happens around 2000 BC or 4,000 years ago. But this is where they are cast out. We can talk more about that when we get to Hajj. All Muslims face the city of Mecca, because that's where the Kaaba is, to perform their 5 daily prayers. A good last point there. About at the bottom here, this is the Kaaba, about I think 47 feet high. The Kaaba in Mecca. It has a mosque surrounding it, obviously outdoor. This is the holiest site. This is the Great Mosque, or the Sacred Mosque. This is the holiest site, the most sacred, solemn site in Islam. Medina was called renamed the city of the Prophet. It used to be called Yathrib. This is the destination of the Hijra. It's about 270 miles north of Mecca. By invitation, that's where they go. This is the city that first favorably accepted the message of Muhammad. This is where the very first mosque, masjid, is built by Muhammad. So the Prophet's Mosque, here you go. The Prophet's Mosque, the prophetic mosque here is right here in Medina. This is the city where he dies. His tomb is located here as well. This is where he is buried, Medina. This is the second holiest site in Islam. And then we have the city of Jerusalem, the third holiest city in Islam. This is the city, the point on earth from which the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. Muslims built a mosque around that rock, that very rock from which Muhammad ascended, and so that's why it's called the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock partially sits on the Temple Mount for Jews. So this is one major reason why Jews have been unable to rebuild their temple, since the Dome of the Rock partially sits on it. The only way the Jews could rebuild the temple, Solomon's temple, is by destroying the Dome of the Rock or somehow bulldozing it out of the way. And that's obviously not going to happen. It's been here since 692 AD. This is also the same point on earth from which Abraham was told to sacrifice his son Ishmael as a sacrifice, as a test of faith. Same point. Muslims actually originally faced Jerusalem while performing their 5 daily prayers, but it has since, very early on in Islamic history, changed to Mecca, and it's been Mecca ever since. All right, so a nice short lesson there on Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem, the miraj, hegira, there for you. All right, we'll get into the 5 pillars, 6 articles of faith, and we'll discuss a little bit about jihad and that as well. Have a great day, everyone.